a Trump presidency has huge ramifications for British politics, not least because it could act as a deterrent against some of the more radical, progressive policies that Keir Starmer and his Labour government are imposing on the rest of us. The Chagos Islands deal is perhaps a perfect example. Now, tonight, I'm happy to say I'm joined by the editor of the National Pulse and key Trump insider Raheem Kassam, live from Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Raheem, thanks for joining the show.
Professor, thank you for having me.
So, you are closer to the Trump camp than pretty much everybody watching this show and pretty much everybody in Westminster. Just give us a view, if you could, from Washington. Trump 2. We're on the cusp of Trump 2. How is this going to be different, do you think, from Trump 1?
Yeah, it's an amazing question. It's an amazing thing to think about because, people will recall back in 2016, the victory was very much a shock victory. It even shocked President-elect Donald Trump back then. I remember when Nigel Farage and I went up to see him in the penthouse at Trump Tower, the famous golden elevator picture now. And the first thing he said to us was, "Is this a big deal?" And we sort of were taken aback by the question and said, "Is what a big deal?" He says, "Me winning, is that a big deal?" And you could tell that he couldn't quite get his head around it. Well, none of that trepidation, none of that surprise is built into this. They really ran a campaign that was ready for governing day one. There are all sorts of personnel issues that are still being worked through, and there's thousands and thousands of positions to fill. But when it comes to day one going into the Oval Office, there is already a long list of executive actions. There is already a long list of demands from Congress and where President Trump will require the cooperation of Congress, for instance, on the border wall and appropriating funds and all of that. But the wider answer to your question is, last time they weren't ready. This time, they're hyper ready.
Yeah. Raheem, if I can, so, ready for government, ready to take on the state, ready to build the wall, etc. There's a lot of people watching this show who will notice that one person who won't be at the inauguration will be Keir Starmer. Also, by the way, I think I'm right in saying Peter Mandelson. Give us a sense as to what the Trump camp are thinking and feeling when it comes to our Labour government.
Well, I have to tell you, and it doesn't fill me with any glee to talk about it this way, because I am obviously interested in what's best for my home country, the United Kingdom. But unfortunately, the Labour apparatus, the Labour staffers that have been sent down to sunny Palm Beach to kind of work the rooms over there, from my understanding, are getting pretty short shrift. Now, I will caveat that by saying, if you've ever met President Trump, if you've encountered him, if you've worked with him, people will know, and I've met him many, many times, will know that he's actually a pretty magnanimous person face to face. He's very welcoming. He's quite gentle. And so he will be trying to elicit the best out of them as possible. The problem is you've obviously got everything that the Labour Party was doing throughout the campaign. You've now got a Labour Party that's at odds with the United States over many, many geopolitical issues. So the people around President Trump are sort of looking at that and going, not so sure how well we can work with you guys.
Interesting. Well, fascinating stuff straight from Washington. Raheem Kassam, do check him out on social media. He's always ahead of the curve. Patrick, if I can, just building on what Raheem was saying there, I mean, we have this remarkable situation. We've got a very pro-Britain president coming into the White House, pro-UK, Team UK. He's got, lots of investments here. But we've also got a government, that just seems completely incapable of sort of welcoming President Trump with open arms. I mean, how do you see the special relationship going over the next few weeks and months?
I think it's going to be very bumpy. I actually, and most of the people watching at home will probably not agree with me, I actually think Peter Mandelson is a vastly more sophisticated operator than almost anyone in this terrible Labour government.
Well, that's not saying much.
No, it's possibly not saying much, but I do think he will try and turn on the charm. He won't berate Trump.
Yeah.
I do think that he has a better chance than some of the other possible ambassadors of forging a decent working relationship.
Sure. And Tessa, if I may, I mean, do you read the room the same way, or do you think actually maybe, we've got Nigel Farage, let's be frank, who's become a sort of, almost unofficial conduit through to President-elect Trump, and arguably Farage's status is going to be enhanced. I mean, Keir Starmer seems to be out of touch with this president.
Yeah, but first among equals, he's not a president, Keir Starmer, he's a prime minister. I think Trump's always going to have, well, he is, yeah, and one who has a thumping majority, love it or loathe it. But he's always going to have a place in his heart, Trump, for Nigel Farage, because he led the way. He was the lightning rod that delivered Brexit, that made Trump look possible, and indeed Trump becomes a reality just a few months later.
I remember it. I think I wrote at the time, you know, if we voted for Brexit, they might vote for Trump.
Exactly. So I think Trump will always have this kind of hot spot, or soft spot rather, for Farage. But in terms of Britain, where we deliver is by leading Europe in NATO. We pay our way better than, more than most European countries. And also, don't forget Prince William. Don't forget Prince William.
Hang on. Thank you to the my panel. I've got to cut you off.